Hi, good morning, my name is Mitchell Blaszko and the space where we meet right now is the Salesbook Sales Lab. At the very beginning, I'd like to get you a little bit more active, so please let me know if you can see and hear me. Do so via the box in the bottom right corner, click Meeting. If you have any technical challenges during our meeting today, I'd recommend closing the browser tab where you're attending the event, rejoin the event, or change your browser to the Chrome browser, as that's the one dedicated to the Click Meeting app. Now that we've got that technical introduction out of the way, I'll just drop you a hint that throughout our meeting today, you can ask me questions about what I'm showing, or any questions you have during our meeting today. Do so via the same chat room in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. I will answer all these questions in the last part of our meeting today, the Q&A session. My dear friends, today we will answer the question of how to manage installation teams in the PV industry. However, to give you an idea of who you will be spending the next 2 or 3 quadrants of your life with, let me give you a brief self-presentation. My name is Mitchell Blaszko and I have been with Salesbook for several years, currently in the position of Customer Success Specialist. In my day-to-day work, I take care of introducing the customer to our product, as well as ensuring that their satisfaction when using it is at the highest possible level. My dear friends, the next slide will be for people who have not yet heard of us. And now, how to tell you about Salesbook in a minute or maybe a minute and a half. I will do my best. My friends, Salesbook is a comprehensive tool for sales teams and for people who manage such teams. It is a tool for both remote and direct sales. When selling remotely, we can use our web app, which you're able to open in any browser. With direct sales, when a salesman needs to go to a customer, for example, he can use the mobile app, dedicated to iPads, and it is in this iPad that he will have all the information and all the modules he needs to carry out a complete sales process. All the data it collects in real time will appear in the integrated CRM system. In terms of the kind of areas where Salesbook works best, we have 3, as you can currently see on the slide. The first is presentation and monitoring. Here we are talking about presentation modules, which will allow you to present any marketing and sales content you want in an insanely visually appealing way to position yourself in the eyes of the customer. That is, you show who you are, what experience you have, what company you represent, what realizations you have already made, who you work with. You can do this through presentations, through photos, videos, or at least a web view and display in Salesbook some web page that you want to show the customer, for example a certificate of some reliability of your company. The second area is the offering and signing of contracts. Here we are talking about modules for personalizing the offer, using the example of the mock-ups you see here, for example from the automotive sector. What does this look like? If we have a sale of a good that requires consultative selling, i.e. there is a customer who wants to purchase the good and there is a salesman who has to personalize this good for the customer. That is when these modules work best. Using automotive as an example, if I want to buy a motorbike, I have to choose not only the company, the manufacturer or the dealer from whom I will buy such a motorbike. I also choose a model, I choose an engine capacity, I choose some kind of retrofit. From the angle of, I don't know, I have a touring motorbike, then I choose some trunks to pack for the trip, etc., etc., etc. What's more, once I've personalized such an offer for a customer, prepared and sent it to them in the form of a summary of such a meeting, then I can sign a contract with them at the same meeting, in the same application. Again, whether it is a face-to-face meeting, I sign such a contract on a tablet, or whether it is a remote meeting, I sign such a contract via SMS signature. The third area that Salesbook brilliantly performs in is dedicated CRM and analytics. In terms of CRM, we are also able to integrate with the system you are currently using. As far as analytics is concerned, here you have access to a reporting database that at the moment contains well over 100 reports. And, most importantly, these are not just reports that will throw up for you, filtering out the number of meetings held in a given month or week. With the help of Salesbook, you are able to analyze each individual meeting and gain knowledge of how long it lasted, which modules the salesperson spent on, how much time was spent preparing the offer, how much time was spent presenting himself and the company he works for. This is all just in our CRM, in back office. And this is what I am talking about here, if I am thinking about analytics. My friends, let's answer the question that is quite important, which is what this webinar will be about. If you already have this without knowing what Salesbook is, we can answer this question. This webinar will be about planning, executing and verifying montages. If I'm talking about planning, what do I mean here? If I'm talking about planning, I'm talking about finding out how to plan assemblies via the Salesbook module and save up to 24% of your employees' time. And as you know, time is money. Next, implementation. I will show you how to manage ongoing assemblies according to the stage of completion. Whether it is a planned assembly, one that the team has accepted for completion, or one that has been postponed because the date originally agreed with the customer no longer suits them. I will show you how, instead of digging through emails, memos, text messages, some pieces of paper stuck on folders with offers, how to have it all in one place in your backend, in your CRM system, instead of just all the work that needs to be done. The third area is verification. Here I will show you how to verify the performance of a particular assembly. You can either accept such an assembly, reject it, or return it for improvement. You have all documentation in one place assigned to a customer thread. The concept of a thread will probably come up many times today, so a thread in Salesbook nomenclature is such a sales opportunity. A thread is any deal you have with a particular customer. The point is that later on in this sales opportunity, in this thread, you have all the information related to the installation, which, as we know, is extremely important in the case of complaints, warranties, returns and similar situations. Okay, now that we know what this webinar is going to be about, let's answer the question of who it is for. My dear friends, it is intended for any company that has an installation team in its structure or that works with such a team. Because they are external, for example, they subcontract teams to themselves. Today we will focus on PV installation, which is also in the title of our webinar today, but remember that such a module can be customized to your individual needs. So, for example, if you do not sell heat pumps or photovoltaic panels, but, for example, modular houses, remember that we can also implement such a module for you. Salesbook is a flexible sales enablement tool for many industries. In this case, if we already know this, we can move on to the practical part, which is for me to show you the assembly module in practice. So, I will provide you with screen, on which I will present our instance created especially for such meetings, like ours today. Please give me a few seconds. And at this point you should see an instance of the webinar demo created just for such meetings and an editing module, in this case an editing tab to schedule. My dear friends, if you would like to get to know more about Salesbook, I invite you to sign up for a free demo. Today, I will focus typically on the assembly module. And yes, the assembly module is one of those modules you see here in our back description. Customers, quotations, contracts, tasks, CRM, etc. And among that assembly. So, here we have the assembly module, but before I show you this assembly module, I would first like to show you how you can personalize it for yourself, for your needs. This is very important. And how do we do this? We do it from the settings level. This is so easy and intuitive. Go into Administration, Settings. Dedicated settings for the installation module. And here we have 3 tabs we can use. The first is the list of installation teams. This is where you manage your teams that you have internally or that you work with. All of them in one place. And look, I have 3 example teams here. I can add teams, if only by using this button. I can also edit any team that exists, or delete it if I no longer work with it. If I would like to edit such a team, let's take a look at what basic data we enter here. Firstly, the name of the team. Here you see a sample team name, you see the contact person, you see the email address. And this is very important, because it is to this email that the team will receive notifications that they have received, for example, an assembly order, or that an assembly has been returned for some kind of correction. You may also want to add an email address to each team, which will be an additional one. Let's say, these emails will come to one person from the assembly team, but in the company that makes its teams available to you, there is someone who would like to receive all orders and be able to verify them from their side. You can then enter this address here. The telephone number of the team is, of course, exemplary. And last but not least, the color that identifies the installation team. Why is this so important? Because as you will see right now in the Assemblies module, you can display, for example, the assemblies which are scheduled for on several options. That is, it can be a list, it can be a map, it can be a calendar. If I use a map, because I'm a visual learner, let's say it's more convenient for me to verify on a map of a given region, where I have a team, where I have a customer, where I have a warehouse, then it will be much easier for you to do it with these colors assigned to a particular team, as you will see right now. Here, this team has the color, let's say red. As for warehouse, you can assign a warehouse to each team. Of course, this is an extra option, you don't have to do it, but you can. Then, in fact, it will give you the fact that the route counted when we are planning the assembly will first be counted from the place from which the team starts, first to the warehouse and only from the warehouse to the customer, which I will also show you on the map in a moment. As for the region, you can assign a region to each team. This is very easy. I have assigned the Wrocław region to this team. Of course, there may be several regions. You can divide the area you are working in into specific teams. What is more, you have a field address, and here, in this address, you enter the place from which the team is starting. Again, this is needed in order to plan a given assembly well, the route the team takes from its starting point to the warehouse, from the warehouse to the customer. Below you see a map of where this address is exactly. And now, here we have, as it were, the first profile tab. What is more, you can set the availability of a particular team. And here you can set a different availability for each day of the week. The availability can either be for the whole day, or a given team may not be available on a given day of the week, or may not be available at certain times. You can then set a specific time, and this team will not be displayed to you if you wish to have an assembly on that date. The next setting we have is for the warehouse. And here you can see the name of the warehouse and its address. As I say, you can use this, you don't have to. In the same way, you can add warehouses, edit the ones that are already there or delete them. If you would like to edit, in fact, and add in the same way, you have the name of such a warehouse and the address of the warehouse where it is exactly located. Okay, and now the biggest tab, which is the assembly process settings. Here we have some of these settings. I will go through them with you so that you can see how you can personalize such a module for yourself, and I will show you with concrete examples what the business benefits are of using such a module. First setting, we can enable filtering by assembly status in the advanced filters. Why do this? Let's say you are involved in the installation of an air conditioner and your customer service ends at the last stage. Let's say, installation done, installation completed, build. Then with a few clicks you can generate all the threads, all of the existing sales opportunities you have at this final stage. And, for example, send out a mailing to those customers who already have your air conditioning installed with an offer, for example, of a warranty inspection or an inspection in the spring. Next setting, attach the contents of the field from the post-installation details thread to the installation process. A long name, but I am already explaining to you what it refers to. Here I want to include attaching the contents of the field from the thread details to the assembly process, because this will allow me, for example, to display information like panel or inverter to my team and they will see what panel is going to be assembled there, what inverter, so I want to do that. Again, this will speed up and automate my work because I, as the person who manages these installations, who orders them, I don't have to go through the customer contracts every time, look at what the bid was for, what the contract was for. It just sends that data automatically from the installation order thread, which fully automates this system for you. You can then enable the possibility to partially save the fields of additional threads when finishing an assembly, i.e. the team will be able to somehow overwrite your thread and, for example, add a comment. You can hide the choice of hours when scheduling an assembly. I don't want to do this on my instance because I want to schedule assemblies with specific times, not just specific days. You can enable the blocking of planning the installation backwards. This is an interesting feature if, for example, you do not want the person responsible for such post-facto assemblies to complete the data for you. So, for example, someone does not like working with CRM very much and works with the teams on the phone, on email, and once a week they force themselves and sit down and enter all this data into the system. But you are not satisfied with this because you would like to have access to such data in real time, in the current time. Then you can enable this blockade and it will not be possible to add assemblies retrospectively, so everything will have to be added on an ongoing basis. The next setting we have is to add the file when you plan the installation, so if you have some file that you always send to the team for procedural reasons, for some internal company reasons, you can easily go into your library. Here, of course, in the library, you have all the files that you need during the customer service process, and when you select a particular category, a particular file, like here we see some example directory, from the details of such a file. And settings, you can uncheck the option to yes, where we have the information for such a file to be displayed in the editing process, and such a file, as you will see in a few minutes, will be automatically added to every assembly order. We're done adding the file, so then you can still send a copy of the email notifications to an additional address. As you will remember, a few minutes ago, when editing assembly teams, I showed you that you can send every order you give to a given team to just such a CC to a yet-to-be-named email address. Here you have the possibility that every order, not for individual teams, but for all teams, all the orders that are made, are sent, for example, still to some technical director who wants to have access to this information and wants to monitor this on an ongoing basis. You can include assembly segmentation. Now, my friends, when it comes to assembly segmentation, this works great if you have several products that you are assembling. You can separate the assemblies for each product, which simply gives you more transparency in the assemblies that you commission. You can then enable filtering by the assembled product in the advanced filters. This is an ingenious feature, because we know, for example, that the wholesaler has run out of panels. We are supposed to go and pick up the panels at the wholesaler tomorrow. But we call to confirm, and it turns out that the panels would not arrive in a fortnight time. So again, in a few seconds you click and you are able to verify which assemblies have already been commissioned, for example, and select the product to be assembled, which you know you will not be able to collect from the wholesaler, so you are not able to carry out the assembly within a certain period of time. You are then able to manage these assemblies very quickly, reschedule them. So again, you don't have to go through the contracts, you don't have to go through the emails that are sent to the teams, the offers that are sent to the customers. Confirm this information with your salespeople. You have everything at the click of a few clicks provided by Salesbook. Another setting concerns the default title of the installation. Here, you can personalize the title you wish to include in the email that the team receives. You can display additional information in the calendar and map views. As I said, there are several views: list view, calendar view, map view. And now in the calendar view and the map view you can display information such as the PV module, the inverter, the mounting system, for example. Here, of course, there is much more of this information. Why do I need to display additional information? Because this is the data I work on most often. I don't want to go into the details of the thread, I don't want to dig through the thread again. I want to have this information whenever I hover over a particular assembly. I just want to know which PV module, which inverter and which mounting system will be at a particular customer, the assembly to be planned. I want to have them included and I select the statuses for the threads for myself here. That is, I select on our sales funnel. At which point in the assembly module a thread will be substituted for me to schedule an assembly for it. I have specifically chosen two statuses here, because in my sales funnel these two statuses are the times when I can arrange for such an assembly, let's say, assembly paid in advance and assembly for installation. What your sales funnel will look like, what statuses you will have, is a very individual matter. I leave that to you. We can, of course, discuss this with you during implementation. There may be one or several of these statuses. I happen to have two of them, and it is from these that I want those threads which are on this status in my funnel to be able to make an appointment for them in the montage. You may wish to enable the possibility of filtering the assemblies to be scheduled after an assumed completion date. Again, how simple, but what a brilliant functionality, because if you sign a contract with a customer, there is usually or always an indication of when the assembly of a particular product that the customer has purchased will be carried out. And now, my dear friends, if you want to verify whether or not all the assemblies, all the contracts, which are coming up in a week or two, are at the stage of planned or already realized, again, with a few clicks, you can then generate information on whether or not all the assemblies, which are coming to the end of their realization period, have been realized, or are at least in the process of realization and will be completed on this date. These features are really amazing and give you a huge room to improve your work. This will, of course, save you from problems and unpleasantness, some penalties, contractual grudges, customer dissatisfaction or some negative comments on social media. My dear friends, another setting we have is that we can block the possibility of adding an assembly in the same term. Yes, of course I want to block this so that I don't accidentally schedule two installations for the same date for one team. You can run status automation, that is, when you select a status, if an assembly has a status, we change it to the status we selected. It's very simple and I've already explained everything. The idea is to save time through automation, and the moment an assembly is, for example, build, it falls into the status in your sales funnel, assembly completed, and then you have, let's say, some quality service department that verifies the quality of customer service, and they can then, for example, call the customer and do a customer experience survey with them, how they rate that assembly. Or you can simply automate this so that threads automatically fall into a given sales funnel status. So take a look, we have settings for warehouses, and here we have two settings. We can enable the ability to schedule assemblies taking into account the location of the warehouse. Yes, I want to do this. I want to do this so that when planning, it first sees the location from which the warehouse team starts and only the customer. Because this will more realistically allow me to plan the travel time and the assembly for the customer. You can also show the warehouse on the assembly map, and that's how I want to do it. Because let's say I'm a visual person and I want to see the warehouse on the assembly map. You can block the possibility of the assembly team rejecting the assembly. If you are working in a more authoritarian way with your assembly teams and you are just delegating these assemblies to them, then you can block that. I don't have it blocked, because I want to show you what options a team can have when they just don't have this option blocked. You can hide the thread maintainer details on the montage recommendation. Yes, I want to hide it because let's say I work with external teams and I don't want the thread keeper data to be visible to the teams. You can enable the status of assembly settled. Yes, I want that status. You can sync the assembly data to the fields of the thread details. You have dedicated settings for that here too. And you can download the thread detail fields when the assembly address is different from the customer address, which I will also show you. And now that you have the whole assembly process set up and personalized for your business, you have added assembly teams, you have added warehouses, we can move on to the assembly module. And here is what it looks like. We go back. Then to our back office. We have a sub-module of assemblies, and here are the three modules that make up it. Assemblies planned, assemblies realized, and assemblies to be planned. And now yes, my dears, assemblies planned. Here, of course, you can see all the installations that have already been planned. Obviously three views: list view, map view, calendar view. The list view, you see the title of this assembly, which is the one we have set for ourselves. Of course, it can be personalized, as here you see an annotation in addition to the standard name, March, for example. You have the team that is assigned to this assembly, the client, the start date, the end date, and information about what status the assembly is in, for example. And now yes, this is what the list view looks like. You also have a map view. And on the map view, let's say I'm operating here within Wrocław, I have my three teams. I'm going to zoom in here on this map so that you can see that clearly. And look, as I said, each team has a color. The number 1 team. Team number 3 in this case, and team number 2. Each team also has a warehouse assigned to it, which will also be the same color if assigned to that team. So I can see the warehouse team, and I can see the customers. And those customers who are assigned to a particular team will, of course, be in the color of that team, which again allows you to visualize this more easily. You can filter the customers here by team. I see here that team 2 has one installation in the Legnica area. Crew number 3, if I add it up, because I'd like to filter like that, well, I can see that here it also has one installation. And that's what I was talking about in the settings, which is I want to have information here about what module is installed, what inverter, what mounting system. I don't want to go into the details of the thread to look for that. I want to have that available here straight away. That's what you're able to verify for yourself, from the setup, from the settings, just so that's how it works. This is what the thread looks like, our sales opportunity. This is just to show you so that you know more or less. So if I don't want to dig in here, for example, to the installation data that was offered to the customer, I can have this information from the map view or the calendar view. Here, of course, the scope can be daily, weekly, monthly. Let's say, When I hover over a particular customer here, I also have this information about the module, inverter and mounting system, as you can see. And okay, these are scheduled assemblies. I have verified, they are scheduled, I can see the dates, okay. I have completed assemblies, so here will be all the assemblies that have been completed in your company at the moment. You can always go into the details of such a thread and see what it looked like, and here we can see, for example, in the notes, that the team who was supposed to return it, well, they wrote us a note that it was finished, then they attached some files to us, well, and they wrote that the pictures had been added. We can list such information here in the completed montages, but what is most important is to finally have an assembly, check how it works. We then enter the montages to be planned, my dears. We have montages to plan. Well, and here we see the list of threads again, which are on their respective statuses. Do you remember these statuses? In my case it was 2. Advance payment made and to be installed. So here we have all 5 threads in this case which are on the appropriate status. And now, if I would like to set up have such an installation, I can do it either from the list level, that is, by simply clicking here to schedule the installation. I can still go to the thread details. Or I can go into the map view and again more visually see for myself my teams and those gray pins that don't have a color yet. Well, they don't have a color because they don't have a prescribed team whose color they could take over. So I can also just plan it from the map level or from the list level. Let us do it from the map level. What information do we have here? Well, we have this standard title, which, as I said, you can personalize or change it individually. I select the team to which I want to assign this installation. Let it be the first team. I am immediately shown where this team is stationed, the distance from the team to the warehouse and from the warehouse to the customer's location. I choose a date when such an assembly is to be carried out. Let's say I plan to complete the installation on the same day, at 8 p.m. And that's great. Now let's look at it. I see that the busy dates. We have the following. On the 20th day, I see that I have an appointment taken by such a client. We are currently planning an installation. Well, I see that it overlaps with this deadline, so I have to change this deadline for myself. Let's say, I change it to a week later. I leave the hours. Great. This assembly can be scheduled. I can, if the location of the installation differs from the customer's location from the address they have in my back description, I can individually set these details here and change the address for the installation. What's more, I can write the team some kind of individual note for this particular assembly. For example, please do not ring to the door, because the customer has, say, a small child and has asked not to ring the doorbell. What's more, I can attach some kind of individual file, i.e., not just the one that will be sent automatically for every assembly order, but also some kind of individual file that I want to attach in this particular case to the order. And I have created such an order. Well, and great. So Michael, you have created an order, but what about the team? How do they see it? How do they get that information? My dear friends, in the following way. If I am the installation team, I simply get an email like this. Just take a look. See, a new installation has been scheduled with a customer on a given day. And I click Manage here. Okay, you see. If I click on Manage, a page dedicated to the installation starts up. And here I can see data such as the current status of the assembly. I can see that it has been scheduled. I see the date, the time when it was scheduled. Here I see, of course, the date of the scheduled assembly. This is the date when it was sent to the team. I can accept such an assembly, reschedule it, or reject it. Remember that you can turn these options off. I just wanted to show you that there are 3 options, if you set it up like this. If you reschedule, you can propose a date. If you reject the installation, I will also get that information. You have here below the information about the client in question. You also have the files that have been attached to this. You remember, I added one file specifically for this assembly. A note, please do not ring the doorbell, and an attachment that will be sent to each assembly. Of course I can download this at any time. And there is not the slightest problem with that either. What is more, you are able to accept such an assembly. We accepted it. I then, as the person who manages such assemblies from the Salesbook level, receive information. Or from the level of the company, which orders more of these assemblies. I get the information that an assembly date has been accepted for Adam Beal, for some example customer. And again, I can go into the details of such a thread, as the person who has access to this back office, because I work in this company. Well, and I can see here on the right side we have the threads built, on the left side we have the details. And on the right everything that is happening on a particular thread. Well, and I can see that the latest changes are that the team has accepted, we have a planned assembly, it has been accepted by the team. There is my note that I gave, I commissioned the team. There is a file that I have attached here. All this data is deposited here, my dears. And now yes. Here I am again returning to the assembly order. Let us say that I have started this assembly, so I am changing the status accordingly. I see that there is a commencement of assembly, and let's say assembly successfully completed. So I am completing this assembly. I want the team to confirm it for me, so they have written that the assembly completed. Successful. I write that. Well, and here I have the information as a team, because remember this is the panel for the assembly team that is displayed to them. They have information that such an assembly is awaiting approval. And here, if I have such information that the assembly is awaiting approval, again, from the level of the person who manages such assemblies in the company and orders them, I get the information that the assembly has been submitted for approval. I can go into the details of such a thread. See, okay, I have information from the team that the assembly has been successfully completed, great. I'm very happy with that. Then I go to the assembly module. I look at assemblies completed, because this assembly has been completed, that's how it was ticked off by the team. I check myself the corresponding status for acceptance, and here at this point I can accept it or reject it. Let's say I want to reject it because the team did not attach photos of the realization. I add an appropriate comment and send this information to the team. Here again, the team gets the information that the assembly in question has been completed, in fact that the assembly has been returned. The completed assembly has been returned. This is the information the team gets. Well, again, he can go to his panel from which he manages these assemblies and sees that this assembly has been returned. Okay, then he can correct something. He can, from the file level, add photographic documentation, for example. For the purposes of the webinar, let's just add in the same file a second time. Okay, well I have added another file. In this case, I go up again and click Finish Editing. So, corrected. It is corrected, say the team to me. Great, I save. And again, my dears, full automation. No one calls, no one texts or writes any cards. Everything is on emails. Everything is confirmed in the thread details. I get a message that, again, the team has accepted my installation. I can go into the details. And here again I see that it has been corrected. I see some file that the team has attached, which is, let's say, photographic documentation there. If I recognize that everything has been done correctly, I can then accept the installation. And here comes the moment that every team probably waits for, which is that such an assembly is confirmed to them as an assembly that has been accepted. And here it is again, my friends, like this. I get an email, I go to the tab for management, which strenuously opens in a second window. It looks like this, which means I have the information that the installation has been completed. Great, I'm very happy. And that's it for the practical part of this meeting, the installation module. You have a huge opportunity here to automate your work, to save time, because we are talking about 24% of the time that I don't have to look in the contracts for the information, in the offers that was sent out. All the data is sent to the team automatically. I actually only commission the installation, and already here most of this data is sent automatically. This is what gives you the advantage of using this assembly module. My dears, allow me to. I will stop sharing the screen with you. And we will move on to the Q&A. I hope there are some questions from you. Good. I hope you can see the questions. Okay, first question. How much does it cost? The cost depends on the number of users and what modules the customer would like to use. So here is the easiest way to arrange a demo. What do I invite you to do? Just click on the link in the description, Register for a free demo, and then within a few quarters of an hour our SDR department will determine the scope of the implementation and verify the cost. Next question. Right. Does it make sense with one team? Of course it does. Of course it does, because it automates your process of planning the implementation and verifying the installation, bringing together all the information, documents and data that you exchange between the person who orders and the installation team that takes on the installation in question. You have all this information in a single thread assigned to the customer, to the sales branch concerned. This will allow you to save, as I said, up to 24% of the time that your salespeople, your employees can allocate to other stages of customer service, for example, whether it's acquiring a new customer, or at least some after-sales service, cross-sell, upsell, and so on. Right. Do I have to have Salesbook to have an assembly module? Yes. The answer is yes. You must have Salesbook in order to have an assembly module. And in fact, I might add here that I would recommend implementing Salesbook to any company in style to verify the possibilities and benefits of implementing such a system for you, for your company, for your industry. I encourage you to arrange a free demo via the link below, as you already know. Another question, probably the penultimate one. Does the team pay for such an installation panel? No. The fee applies to a company that uses Salesbook and wants to have such a sub-module on its Salesbook. There is no cost for the team to use such a module, to get such emails, to have this panel of theirs where they can manage the installation. Okay. Where do the assembly documents go? The assembly documents, in fact, all the information will be stored in two places. Firstly, in the assembly module, in other words, in the completed installations. There, you can see how it went, but in fact you will find everything in the thread details, so all the information, the files which were sent by you or the team, the notes, whether the installation was accepted or maybe the date was postponed, all this will be stored in the thread details and in the thread assigned to the particular customer. The last question, my dears, is a bit repetitive, but let me answer again. Mr. John, how much does this module cost? As I said, it depends on the number of users you would have in your company using this Salesbook and the modules you would need for this. To answer this question, I invite you to register for a free demo by clicking on that link below, the one that says Demo. This will put you in touch with our SDR department, which will be able to check within a few quarters of an hour to see to what extent and with what functionality Salesbook can be implemented for you and precisely this editing module. More questions are coming in, which makes me very happy. I see that you have been waiting until the end for the Q&A. Well, give me a second. Give me a second, because I have a little technical problem with the display of the question, but we'll fix it right away. How much does the module cost? I've answered that. I apologize to you all. Okay, now yes, I guess the question is it necessary to implement the warehouses? Is it necessary to maintain the stock? Mr. Camel, as I said, no, warehouses are not mandatory to implement. You can use the assembly module without using the warehouses option. It is simply an additional option, and here, when you are planning the assembly, by adding the warehouses to the assembly module, when you are planning the assembly, you will first have, as it were, the distance from the starting point of the team to the warehouse and then from the warehouse to the customer. If you do not add warehouses, then automatically you will only have the distance from the starting point of the assembly team to the customer. Good. Next question. Can external forms be imported into it? Mr. John, in Salesbook we can add fields to threads that will be shared in the assembly card. For example, as I have shown, we can choose for ourselves which fields from the thread detail will be shared to the assembly team in the order of such an assembly. Such fields can also allow any file to be shared, for example from the library. If you wish, we can import some form into the library and, as I have shown, in the settings so set it up. However it sounds, so that it is sent to every assembly order. So now you see, it is easy. Okay, as far as I can see, I would not want to miss a question, but I have probably answered all the questions, so thank you very much for all the questions. Let me come back to the presentation for a few more seconds. And now yes. If you would like to see what a Salesbook implementation might look like in your company, please arrange a free demo with us by just clicking on this link below. Sign up for a free demo. Our SDR department will show you how to implement both from Salesbook and the assembly module at your company. In terms of what we have learned today, let's summarize everything. What we have learned today is how to plan the work of your assembly teams, how to get information about the realization of assemblies, their individual stage, what is happening with all the assemblies we have currently commissioned, in a quick, easy, reliable way. And then there is the third area that was covered today, which is how to verify the work after analyzing the documentation prepared by the teams we work with. That is what we have learnt today, my friends. If you have any questions that were not raised here in the Q&A session, you can always write to me on LinkedIn. This is the address of my profile. Add me to your professional network, write to me, I will be very happy to answer all your questions. If we're on social media, of course, I invite you to follow us on our social media to keep up to date, because that's where we communicate with you and talk about new features, or even webinars like this one. When they're going to be, what they're going to be about, so both on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, that's where we communicate with you. On YouTube, you can watch all of our webinars we've done so far, so that's where I invite you to. You might find an area that interests you. Soon our all webinars will also be available in English. I will be pleased if you rate this webinar by leaving a like and a comment. So, if everything has been said today, I would like to thank you very much for the time we have spent together here. And slowly, I hope I was able to show you what a great tool in your daily work is the assembly module from Salesbook. Have a great day.